Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Dana with the Data. Yes, Candace Owens admits she was wrong about Minister Louis Farrakhan. Yes, Candace Owens just admitted something that's going to shock a lot of people. For years, she called Minister Louis Farrakhan a raging anti-Semite on national television. But now, she's completely backtracked. She's admitting she was told to say those things. She was just following a script. But here's what's really wild. Both Candace Owens and Minister Louis Farrakhan are now being accused of the exact same thing, anti-Semitism. And both are saying they're just speaking the truth. So what really happened here? Why did Candace flip? And what does this reveal about narratives that are controlled in the media? This story goes way deeper than you think. Let's start with what Candace actually said back then. This is from Fox and Friends, where she's talking about Minister Louis Farrakhan and the controversy around him.
And groups like Black Lives Matter urging lawmakers to condemn President Trump instead.
We got some black radicals up here in Congress, is what I'm trying to tell you. We have disguised ourselves in suits and ties, and we are some cold-blooded militant people.
So why aren't more Democrats distancing themselves from a man who likens himself to Hitler? And what if it was the other way around? Joining me now is the Director of Urban Engagement at Turning Point USA, Candace Owens. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Candace. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So what is your take on all of this?
Look, I think it's dark and it's ironic, and what we're seeing take place on the left is that a form of extremism is starting to take place. You can't even get me started on Al Sharpton. I mean, as a black American, I fundamentally take great issue with a lot of the things that he's done here. We're talking about a man that has frauded the black community over the last 40 years, now taking a platform and telling us that we should be aligning ourselves with Louis Farrakhan, who is a known anti-Semite. And this is the same platform on the left that they tell us that we should be worried about Trump because he's racist, because he's sexist, because he's literally Hitler, their favorite thing to say. And yet they align themselves with somebody who is a known anti-Semite. Just consider that for a second.
And what they're doing specifically, they're protesting this House resolution. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? It was introduced by Republican Indiana Representative Todd Rokita, and it formally condemns Farrakhan's anti-Semitism.
Yes, exactly, as it should. We should be condemning his anti-Semitism. This is a form of extremism. It makes perfect sense, but what they tend to do a lot, and when Al Sharpton is involved, what you know is going to take place is that we're going to see the black community, he's going to extort their pain and emotion and try to get them to vote and think a different way for policies that do not make sense. He does this over and over again. He pushes democratic policies that fundamentally hurt the black community and make entirely no sense, but he thinks that he can do that because he's Al Sharpton, a civil rights leader, which he couldn't be further from a civil rights leader. So
that's my question. Speaking of voting, why are Democrats so hesitant to distance themselves from Louis Farrakhan?
Because the voter market, that's what it comes down to. The Democrats are losing a battle right now. They see that happening every single day, and they're not going to tip the scales any more than they're already tipped. They're going to keep as many people as they can in this form of extremism. You see Black Lives Matter involved. Talk about another extreme hate group that doesn't make any sense ideologically. We are seeing in our communities that they've actually raised, the black homicide rate has gone up 17% since they've gotten involved because police no longer want to answer the calls because of their unfair war on our police. So, I mean, what it comes down to is none of it makes any sense, but what we're seeing is desperation on the left right now.
So this is a prequel, we're also told, to this upcoming march. It happens Saturday, April 21st, the 10,000 Black Men's March against Donald J. Trump.
don't even get me started on this. It makes fundamentally no sense. There is no facts involved in this whatsoever. Blacks are better off today than they were when Obama was in office. Black unemployment is at an all-time low because of some of his policies. What we're seeing take place right now is that Donald Trump is encouraging us to end this system of government dependence. And people like Al Sharpton and the left and the Democrats are fighting to make sure that black remain their ideological slaves.
All right, Candace, thank you so much for joining us.
Now, I agree with her sentiments on Al Sharpton. That is very true, even to today. However, just listen to how confidently she was talking about Minister Louis Farrakhan being an anti-Semite. She's not hesitating. She's not questioning it. She is stating it as an absolute fact. She even compares the situation to how the left was calling Donald Trump Hitler. But let's fast forward to now and listen to what she says.
Cover extensively what it is that he brings to the forefront, but a lot of people are not educated about what is happening, and we are inching ever closer to World War III. This person, Lowly, writes, don't forget about Judge Joe Brown. His interview was probably top 3. He lived history firsthand. Yeah, what he told me about MLK was crazy. I promise next year we're going to do an entire episode with him just dedicated to what happened to him when he found out the truth about MLK Jr., who killed him. Little note here, guys, it was us. And yeah, because the stuff that he told me offline was even more amazing about them shooting into his house and what lengths our deep state will go to protect its secrets. ID writes, can you please interview Farrakhan? He's in his 90s. I actually don't know anything about Louis Farrakhan because when I got into politics, I was always told you can never speak about or know anything about Louis Farrakhan because he's a raging anti-Semite. And I believed that. I'm going to be honest, I totally believed that because why would people say that if it wasn't true? And these were people very much on the right. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and be honest about that. That was what I was told. There are a lot of comments.
So which is it, Candace? Were you speaking from knowledge or were you just repeating what you were told? This is a massive contradiction, and it reveals something much bigger about how media narratives work. Now, to understand why this matters, we need to look at what Minister Louis Farrakhan has actually been saying. And here's where it gets interesting. He's been making the exact same claim that Candace is now making. Minister Louis Farrakhan filed a lawsuit against the ADL and the Simon Wiesenthal Center. His argument? That he's been falsely labeled as anti-Semitic for nearly 40 years. And these organizations have used their media influence to spread these charges worldwide.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Minister Louis Farrakhan, the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the eternal leader of the Nation of Islam, and that great preacher of freedom, justice, and equality to the black man and woman of America, to the black man and woman in the Caribbean and Central and South America, in Africa, in the Isles of the Pacific, and to our brown and red and yellow brothers and sisters, wherever you are. This message is for you. On the 28th anniversary of the Million Man March, October 16th, we filed a lawsuit against the ADL and the Simon Wiesenthal Center, against their leadership, because our desire now is to state our case before the courts and before the world. We are not what they have said we are, and we intend tend to prove such. This is probably the most sensitive time in our struggle for equal justice, freedom, and equality. For nearly 40 years, we have withstood the awful charges that have come against me and those who are in the Nation of Islam under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and myself. We have borne a lot in these last 40 years in the absence of our great leader and teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And Elijah Muhammad, prepared me to receive the insults, the snares, being evil spoken of, and my and our reputation being scarred and bruised by the false charges of anti-Semitism by the Anti-Defamation League, and with their influence over the media, these false charges have been spread throughout the earth. All over the world, I and we have been hated, and I and we are hated the same today. I have been denied entrance into several countries and have been labeled as persona non grata. I'm presently being called the godfather of hate. And I'm being called one of the leading anti-Semites in America. Myself and my family and those who followed the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under my leadership have suffered and been scapegoated and have lost positions in media.
Listen to what he says. You cannot find one word in tens of millions of words that God has guided me to speak in 68 years of service where I have ever called for the death of those who call themselves Jews. So now we have two people, Candace Owens and Minister Louis Farrakhan, both saying the same thing, that they've been falsely accused of anti-Semitism. Both saying they're just speaking truth. But here's the pattern. Anyone who questions certain narratives, anyone who speaks about specific topics, gets hit with the same label. It's like a playbook. Step 1, label them anti-Semitic. Step 2, use the media influence to spread the label. Step 3, make them persona non grata. Just like what Minister Louis Farrakhan said. That means an unwelcome person. Step 4, anyone who associates with them gets the same treatment. And Candace Owens just admitted she fell for it. She repeated the narrative without doing her own research. But this goes even deeper than just media narratives. Let's look at what both Candace and Minister Farrakhan are actually talking about when they say they're speaking truth. Both of them have been speaking about what's happening in Gaza, about the Israeli policies, about the influence of certain organizations on American politics. These aren't anti-Semitic positions. These are political positions that millions of people around the world hold. And now Candace is essentially saying the same thing. She's admitting she was wrong to speak without knowledge, wrong to repeat what she was told. This is the battle we're seeing play out in real time. It's not about anti-Semitism. It's about who gets to control the narrative, who gets to decide what can and can't be discussed. We see this pattern everywhere. People get labeled, deplatformed, canceled, not for what they actually said, but for challenging certain narratives. And the labels stick because most people, like Candace, admit it. Just accept what they're told without researching for themselves. So what changed for Candace Owens? Why is she now admitting she was wrong? If you've been following her content lately and she is blowing up, you can see she's been going through what you might call an awakening. She's been questioning narratives she used to accept without question. When she says, "I was always told you can never speak about or know anything about Minister Louis Farrakhan," that's revealing something huge about how the conservative movement operates. But make no mistake about it, the liberals and the Democrats operate the same way. There are certain topics, certain people, and certain ideas that are just off limits. This raises uncomfortable questions. If conservative commentators are being told what they can and can't discuss, what they can and can't research, then how independent are they really? Meanwhile, Minister Louis Farrakhan is putting his money where his mouth is. He's filed a lawsuit. He's challenging these organizations in court. He's saying, prove it. Prove that he's what you say he is. That's not the behavior of someone who's guilty of what he's accused of. That's the behavior of someone who is confident in his position and wants to clear his name. Candace Owens the same. She is not afraid to take on presidents of countries, the ADL, or anyone else who wants to try to cancel her. And now you have both of them from very different backgrounds, very different political positions, coming to the same conclusion that they've been targeted for speaking uncomfortable truths. This story really isn't about Candace Owens or Minister Louis Farrakhan. It's about something bigger. It's about how narratives are created and maintained in our society. When Candace admits she was told what to think about Minister Louis Farrakhan, she's pulling back the curtain on how this system works. There are gatekeepers who decide what's acceptable discourse and what isn't. And once you get labeled, whether it's anti-Semitic, racist, conspiracy theorist, or whatever, the label follows you everywhere. It becomes almost impossible to have a fair hearing from your actual ideas. But what we're seeing now is more and more people refusing to accept these labels at face value. They're doing their own research. They're listening to people directly instead of accepting what they're told about them. Candace's admission is significant because it shows that even people within the system can wake up. Even people who were part of spreading these narratives can recognize when they've been wrong. And that's what's really happening here. It's not just about these two individuals. It's about a broader awakening to how information is controlled and narratives are manufactured. So what's the lesson here? It's simple. Don't just accept what you're told about anyone. Do your own research. Listen to people directly. Form your own opinions.
And it's amazing because of not just how they announced it, but the quote that they were able to get from Stop Anti-Semitism's founder, which is a woman named Leora Rez. So they announced that firebrand pundit Candace Owens has been named the anti-Semite of the year by the watchdog group stop anti-Semitism. They say that she, quote, blew the competition away with more votes than anyone in previous years. Right there, amazing. It's like so much is going on. If you really got to paint a picture of yourself of who is terrifying the Jewish community, like who is the second coming of Adolf Hitler. It used to be Donald Trump. They're over that. Now he's in the cover of Time magazine. But also Adolf Hitler was once upon a time in the cover of Time magazine. Anyways, the point is now they've realized the field has been cleared by me, Candace Owens, okay? This is the quote that Leora Rez gave. It is exceptional. She said, Candace Owens's witch's brew of anti-Semitism drew from vile medieval blood libels, including claims that Jews drink Christian blood, conspiracies that Jews are pedophiles who control the media and are taking over America, and modern toxic anti-Israel hysteria. There is no psychotic rabbit hole too extreme for this poisonous hater. And I just wonder, like, when people give quotations like that, and then when publications decide to publish quotations like that, are they really in that much of a vacuum? Is this just like a feedback loop amongst people that are like Likud Party journalists, where they don't realize how completely warped and deranged they sound to even put these things on paper? Like, no one believes this. Obviously, nobody believes this. And look no further than the New York Post comment section. It was exceptional, just completely being ratioed everywhere. You got to go on Instagram. I'm going to read you a few of these comments, but people were just reaching out. We were getting donations. They were angry at the New York Post for this, making a mockery of it. Even Grok, which is like X's AI program, were like, yeah, Candace has been named anti-Semite of the year, but there has been some mixed reaction. So
Candace Owens had the courage to admit she was wrong. She had the integrity to say, I was just repeating what I was told. That takes guts in today's climate. And Minister Louis Farrakhan is putting everything on the line to clear his name and reputation. The question is, what other narratives are we accepting without question? What other labels are we applying without investigation? If this opens your eyes to how the media narratives work, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep breaking down these stories that mainstream won't touch. And let me know in the comment section what other public figures you think have been unfairly labeled. Let's have that conversation. The truth is out there, but we have to be willing to look for it ourselves. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Dana with the Data, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Dana with the Data. Dana with the Data.